Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is My New York. I'm back at Mimi Sheraton's house in Greenwich Village. The celebrated food critic just turned 96, and last week we learned how she got her food education. Today, a review of her gastronomic epiphanies across China, Russia, the Middle East, and Europe. It's delightful to see you, to continue our conversation, Mimi, and we left it off last week with your quote, "Food is a great handle by which to pick up another culture." Tell me more about what you meant by that.
Well, I think when you get people talking about the food they grew up with or explaining how something is made, there is a funny transfer of feeling about you, that they trust you. You're talking about the food I grew up with. You're meeting someone with whom you share an interest. You're not meeting on the grounds of your differences, but you're meeting on the grounds of a specialty. When you meet on any common ground, you are sort of friends right away and open up. What was interesting to me when we suffered 9/11 in New York, I had calls from Japan, Israel, several countries in Europe, of friends I had made while I was in those places doing stories. It was just that you remain a connection because you have a mutual interest.
Remarkable. All those years later.
All those years later, and from all over. And one of the several trips were very important in my life for food interest. In 1953, with my first husband, we went to Europe for 3 months. I had never been. I was at 17. I asked for a leave of absence.
17 magazine.
17 magazine. And in those days, many of the magazine's readers had hope chests, and that had a lot of silver and china advertising. And when I went for 17 and asked for a leave, the editor said, "If you will visit our silver and china advertisers in Europe, you're an editor, you want to see what's next.
It's a business trip.
We will put you on half salary." But I found then that the most valuable visits were those, because they would entertain me, they would remain for information whenever I needed it in the future. And in that, it was Denmark and France. And
Well, I was going to ask you, what about those 3 or 4 months in your first visit to Europe? What can you recall about food and restaurants, or just meeting people over food? Any specific memories?
hot dogs in London had ketchup on them.
What do they know? What do they know? Was
No,
this when you wrote the, or was it later? I guess it was later when you wrote the piece about Scandinavian food.
I was just going to say Denmark was a revelation. Denmark opened up a whole different attitude to food and life. It's a very special place in my heart. And the fish preparation, the little open sandwiches of 200 tiny shrimp piled up on one piece of buttered bread, the naturalness was it was a whole different idiom from Italian, French, and the life was different. People pay very high taxes, but they're very well taken care of. All the education, graduate school, everything is old age taken care of.
Is this where you became aware of the custom of dining by candlelight?
Yes, all Scandinavia. I've been to homes also in Sweden, and that was the custom, all candlelight, which had a quieting move on the proceedings. People's voices were, I would call them candlelight voices. They didn't seem ridiculously to be whispering, but the tempo and the quiet of
The
voice.
ambiance.
Yeah, I think one of the most memorable dinners was at the home of a famous Danish, Pete Hein was his name. He was an artist,
Yeah.
He was an activist, he was political, and they did this meal which began with about 100 shrimp, the little teeny ones like babies' pinkies, on the buttered bread. And the main course was new boiled potatoes, red potatoes, from which they had peeled a little band around the center. So it was like a little white belt around the red. That was one bowl with butter and dill. And the other huge bowl was morel, wild mushrooms, that the host and his wife had foraged for in a very
Really?
light cream sauce. That was followed by an array of Danish cheeses, served more with vegetables than with fruit. Pieces of cucumber, celery. I think the only fruit was green grapes. And finally, what they call kransekage. Kranse means a wreath, and they were round or long, finger-shaped marzipan pastries. That was very Danish. Coffee, great beer, and all this candlelight and the wonderful garden. It was midsummer. And midsummer,
Very important.
it was, it's never truly dark till quite late, sort of the blue-white of a Scandinavian summer evening. And the whole thing, the food, showed me a respect for ingredients and the interest in potatoes and mushrooms. You just paid attention to those. And there was no talk then about nouvelle cuisine or farm to table. It was just the way the Danes lived, and I'm sure the Norwegians and the Sweden.
You paint just a very specific, beautiful picture. I'm getting hungry, by the way.
Yeah, it was one of the, it changed my view of what you can serve and how you can serve it, and, very simple table setting, beautiful flower arrangements. And in Scandinavia and Germany, where I spent a lot of time doing research for the German cookbook, which has now been in print steadily since 1965.
Your German cookbook?
My German cookbook. I think in both of those places, the kind of specialty on presentations and naturalness and so on.
Tell me about China.
Well, I'm Jewish, and therefore I grew up on Chinese food.
Of course.
The only,
on Christmas and every other day.
The only foreign cuisine in all parts of Brooklyn was on every Market Avenue, there was a Chinese, Cantonese restaurant. A child's meal was 25 cents for lunch. An adult was 40 cents for lunch. Wow. And it was a favorite cuisine. And the only foreign one I knew, it wasn't until much later that I ate Italian food in Italian restaurants, though my mother would make baked spaghetti or something. And by the way, my second husband, my darling Richard Aurelio Falcone, asked that my mother please never make pasta for him again. He said, tell your mother I love Jewish cooking, I love American cooking, but noodle pudding, noodle kugel, which was sweet, he just couldn't stand sweet pasta. He said, just tell him I like everything, not to make anything Italian for him. But China was always in the back of my mind as a person. And when I left the New York Times, one of the places I went several places, freelance at the same time, was the Condé Nast, Time magazine. And Henry Grunwald, who was the head of, all of the...
all the magazines.
All the magazines, had taken a news group to China, and he said the food was just terrible. This was
Really?
76.
1976.
Yeah. And he said, let's send Mimi to China, because I was by that time on Time magazine. And then I got to eat things we never saw at Chinese restaurants in Brooklyn. But I also went to hospitals where I saw open head surgery with mild anesthetic.
Whoa.
But I studied food in children's school cafeterias, in workers' cafeterias. I was interested in that level too. And of course, there were a lot of street food where I had frogs on a stick and all these. It's amazing I'm alive, because when I think of COVID coming from the live food, I was in all the live food markets in China, but it is the most amazing cooking.
And you wrote about this all in Time magazine, so did you change the boss's mind about Chinese food?
No,
I mean, he thought,
no, Henry only liked European food.
I see.
He didn't like food in South America or anything, all else a waste of time.
Parochial, very parochial for somebody at the head of Time
Yeah, but
Life.
he loved Lutèce, and he loved,
Wow.
all of that
I
kind
can
of food.
I can understand
But I
loving.
had wonderful 3 weeks in China, almost a month, with my own interpreter who went around with me, and then I included Taiwan to compare to mainland China.
Yeah.
And then I had, in 1960, I did a book called City Portraits, which was a compilation of guides from SAS Airlines. So I took 3.5 months.
They sent you around the world.
Yeah, they sent me around the world. I had to pay everything else myself, but by that time I had worked for Restaurant Associates as a consultant, so I did a study for them on the food in every place I had been.
Well, I've read a piece you wrote for Smithsonian magazine.
Right.
By your count, you dined at more than 21,000 restaurants in 49 countries across your career. So the food epiphanies galore, and brought back mementos from many of those trips to this house. But before we talk about the mementos, I want to talk about some of those most memorable meals that you told Smithsonian about. And some of them were not even just a meal. It was an appreciation of just a food, because one of them you cited was green fig, a green fig from a tree in an Italian garden.
Yeah, that was my first trip in '53, and I had an Italian secretary, and she and her parents had relatives in Senegalia. And they wanted to send them cash. So they asked me if I would take cash, because we were going down the Adriatic coast where Senegalia is, and would I bring $250 in American cash to their relative. So we were driving down the coast, and about 8 o'clock in the morning, I got to the relatives, and they took me into the garden where they had a fig tree, and pulled off a fig for me. And that was the first time in my life I ever had a fresh fig. Of course, that wasn't usual in American art.
Of course.
I had dried figs, but it's totally different. It was a green fig. It still had dew on it. It was still a little warm on the inside. And it was just an incredible thing to bite into. It was, transfixed. So I never forgot that in Senegalia.
A giant Syrian tomato.
Yes, that was in California in the Napa Valley. And it was grown by a certain farmer there who was a supplier to all the restaurants, like the French Laundry and everything, wonderful. And they grew this giant Syrian tomato, which was like no other I had ever eaten. It was sweet and sort of spicy and, sweet and sharp, and a beautiful texture.
Better than Italian tomatoes?
It was very different than, which are remarkable too, of course, but it was, It was the best fresh tomatoes I ever tasted.
Tell me about another meal you cited for the Smithsonian. Bucatini aglio olio.
Oh, that
Very simple, but
that along with white clam sauce would make up my two most favorite pastas. And of course, clam sauce is really aglio olio with clams.
sure.
So that's understandable, but
For folks who don't know, aglio olio is garlic and oil,
yeah.
and the bucatini in
Thick. Bucatini is a rather thick,
right.
what you would call maybe a thick spaghetti. And I don't like it too al dente. I'm not a big al dente fan. I like it a little bit soft. I don't like to taste a central firmness. So
This is a perfect time to mention that bucatini amatriciana is a staple in the Roman diet, and you and I know a wonderful chef who still puts that out every night here in New York.
right, Sandro's restaurant.
Bucatini amatriciana, it's fabulous.
It's the best amatriciana, and he also does a wonderful cacio e pepe. Very, very good.
Yes, he's a wonderful man. We could do a whole other program about about Sandro.
We could do one on Syria too.
Sirio Macchione,
Syria
rest his
was
soul.
very unhappy with me.
Really?
Because I didn't want...
Sirio, by the way, Sirio Macchione is Le Cirque.
Right.
Was Le Cirque. May he rest in peace. He was
was
unhappy
very
with...
upset that I wouldn't be friends. You know, he did finally know who I was after a number of visits when he didn't. But when he finally did, he would try to invite me to Sunday night's dinner at his home, prepared by his wife. And I didn't socialize with restaurant owners. I didn't go wherever they were. One of my best friends, Enid Nemi, the columnist, would have an annual Christmas party that I never attended because 3 or 4 restaurateurs and press agents were there. But when Sirio tried to find out, he finally found out who I was. I guess he was on friendship terms with other food writers. Mm-hmm. And we used to have a lot of sparring done.
I can
But
believe
he was, I think, maybe the best restaurateur of them all. He wasn't a chef, he was a restaurateur. He knew just how to treat the rich people who came to them. He once said to me, rich people like freebies. And he would give them bags of cookies, you know, when they left.
Another one of your memorable meals, you called it your 10 most memorable meals, the article in Smithsonian, Peking duck in Beijing.
Yes, yes, at a very special Peking duck restaurant, the name of which I can give you, but I can't right now because I have to look it up. But I think that's one of the world's greatest creations in a dish. The idea of hanging it and drying it and then, you know, blowing it up with a bicycle pump to separate the skin from the meat. It's all very, very ingenious.
You brought home mementos from every place you went,
Yeah.
and they're all over this place. Which ones would you like to tell us about?
Well, right over here, that's from Florence, Italy. It's alabaster, it's not marble. It's a fountain.
Yeah.
But of course dry in here. Then up here are all from India except one piece. India was a revelation in food, marvelous, especially Northern Indian, which wasn't much known then. You know, usually foreign cuisines most often were the cuisines of the south of a country. It's very interesting. Yeah. Southern Italian, Naples and Sicily, Canton from China, India. And I think that part of the reason was that the Southerners were usually the poorer people. I don't know why, but those were the immigrants, and they began simple restaurants with the home dishes they knew. And that, I think, accounted for the knowledge of South Indian and so on that began to show themselves in the 70s China, one of the biggest differences was Nixon opening China so that Chinese chefs could be sent to this country from the north, which wasn't possible. We began to see northern Italian cooking. I don't know why the South is always poorer, but even Germany, it was Bavarian cooking that we knew.
Yeah.
We didn't know North German cooking, which was very similar to Denmark because it had all been part of Schleswig-Holstein,
Yes.
which was Danish for a long time.
Yeah. What else you want to tell us about? We got things upstairs and.
Upstairs, I have a whole collection of Dutch antique chocolate molds from Holland, including one with letter molds, because on St. Nicholas Eve, children get their initials in either chocolate or marzipan-filled pastry.
Really? That's a wonderful tradition.
What's
I like
upstairs are the chocolate alphabet molds. The table's from France, but nobody needs an excuse for going to France for food. The sofa, that was bought at a very famous auction house called the Dorotheum in Vienna, and I was advised to go the day after Christmas because nobody had any money the day after Christmas and prices were low, and so I had it shipped home. The fabric on it and these chairs I carried home from Paris. The rug at our feet were from Cairo, Egypt, which was out right near the pyramids, and a restaurant that specialized in roasted chicken and bread baked in the kind of ancient Egyptian bread ovens. They were reproduced in this place, and that's how the bread was baked. But I will say Egypt had a wonderful food, a wonderful preparation with my favorite poultry, which is squab. And wherever you went, there were places in Cairo and elsewhere where they pressed them flat, roasted them over coals, and in one place, the fan used to keep the fire burning bright was turkey feathers.
Really?
And they would have to keep replacing that because they singed on the end, and they would have to keep making new fan. But that was one of my greatest dishes, were just a platter full of 6 or 8 grilled squab. What else is around here? Hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
It's a home Buddhist shrine. It's supposed to be 101 Buddhas, and I've counted many times. I really don't think it's 101. But when it was,
Maybe they shortchanged you with that.
And when it arrived, shipped from Japan by SAS on that trip, many of those had fallen off, and I had to glue them on.
There are endless stories in this house and in that beautiful head of yours, and you are such a rare gift to all of us for allowing us here and sharing them with us. I really appreciate it. And once again, happy birthday, Ms. Sheraton. Baruch Hashem.
Really humble over the attention. I appreciate it very much.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Mimi Sheraton.
Tanti auguri is right.
Abigazet. I don't know what to say at this point. I don't want to stop. I want to continue with Mimi for maybe 3 or 4 more hours, but we don't have 3 or 4 more hours. So.
By the way, my husband and I celebrated our 50th anniversary at Rayos. Rayos was a restaurant I made popular. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Rayos is perhaps the only, I don't know, condominium restaurant in.
I don't know what it is now, but a local Democratic politician, Bill Passanante, took us to Rayos. He says he didn't say who I was, and my husband and I went 3 more times, and I gave them 3 stars.
Right.
And they became so popular, and they were furious. They were just so mad. They didn't want the attention. They closed for a whole month after my review, for the month of August. And I met Norman Mailer at a party, and he said, "Oh, the woman who ruined Rayo's." And of course, they began to get so many people. They were already had journalists and
Sure.
you know,
Well,
don't ask.
as I said, we could go on forever because there are stories. Mimi has so many stories. You know, maybe we should just make a year of shows with you.
Frank Pellegrino was so
Frankie.
special. He came to my 90th birthday party. By that time, I didn't care if, I wasn't reviewing there anymore. But the 50th anniversary was wonderful. They were never open on the weekend, so we did it on a Saturday night. They opened for
All
us.
right. We have to leave it, unfortunately, sadly.
We have to mention them as one of the major reviews, though, because it changed their whole lives in business.
Yeah.
It's why they now have packaged, jars of sauce and restaurants in California, and I don't know if they're still in Vegas.
I don't either. But we have to leave it.
Yeah.
We have to leave it there, sadly. And we thank you for watching. See you next week.